I'm here today and I'm very impressed with all the speakers, and there was somebody in my life that changed my view on things and changed me into the person I am today. And this was a girl I'd like to introduce to you today, the girl that changed my life. We met in my hometown, it's my hometown, when I was still in high school, about 15 years ago. Her name was Jazzy. In her native language, this means wonderful child. This Jazzy, she's a bit hairy, but I met her the day she was born, about 15 years ago in the zoo I was working. She's a gorilla, as you can see. Jazzy is not alone, she has a family. This is her mom on the left, Dalila. On the right, Miss Kishiwa, her sister. This is her father, Bongo. He was not very happy to see me at first, but after a while, we got to know each other over the 6 years I spent with them together. Or maybe it was just because I was always there to feed them. I don't know. Anyway, Jazzy was doing very well in the time I was there. This is her about 1 year after she was born. She's still with her mom. And she started to learn about the world around her. And she started to, go around on the top of her mom, exploring the world. And she was climbing all over the place, exploring new things, exploring the world around her. And she was also looking at places you might not expect to look and see what's going on. Oh, yeah, things come out of there. It's very interesting. As a child, we learn and play and we get to know the world around us. And actually, you can see she's not a native Dutch person, but she was born in Holland, and her parents were adopted by this person, Wim Mager, and her parents were orphans in Africa. He took them to my hometown, and he built a very natural environment for them in a forest next to my high school, because he thought, these gorillas come from very far, I want to give them a place that feels like home. And how did he do that? It's very interesting. This is the group of gorillas, Jazzy's whole family. They are the biggest and most successful gorilla group in captivity in the world. Up to 30 individuals at a time. So it's really a big group. And it looks quite natural. There's trees and all that kind of thing. There's water. What's very interesting is that he came up with the idea of giving animals a place in a zoo so that we can observe their natural behavior, and they can be the beings that they are in nature, and we can appreciate them for that. So he designed this island over the years. And actually this island is very interesting. It works like this. I will introduce you on the left top. There's a kind of amphitheater where we would have these kind of performances like today. On the bottom right, there is a block, which is a house, where they would sleep when it's too cold or at night when there's nobody around. And the rest of the island is for them to use during the day. And you can see these lines, and these lines mean different things. They mean different elements on the island. Maybe a group of trees to shelter from the rain. Maybe a wall when you don't want to see the visitors coming to look at you. And there's also some things with dotted lines, things you can see through, but only if you try very hard. It's very interesting what happens. For instance, this is Bongo in the front, and on the top is his son, Makula, who was living at another island at that time. Young guys don't want to live with their parents anymore, so they move to the home next door. And if Makula would climb up to the mountain, he could see his father. If he didn't want that, he would just, go behind the trees to get out of the way. You don't want your father to look at you all the time. And I found this is the same for people. I found this architect later, who happened to be a Dutch architect, who did this for children in schools. You can see these little girls in the front can communicate with that girl in the classroom, but if that girl goes behind the wall, she can't see them anymore, and they're more private. The teacher, however, a little bit taller, can still see them through the window. It's very interesting. So if you know about the beings that you design for, if you know about their behavior, you can make a place that feels like home for them. It's very interesting, I thought. But, slight problem, I lived there and I worked there and I saw this and I was very happy. The gorillas were happy. But I found the rest of the world was not quite like that at all. I saw this is what other people were doing to gorillas. People were burning rainforests. People were poaching gorillas. And in other zoos, gorillas were held like this. You know, left is Berlin, and the top right is New York. These are zoos from all over the world with gorillas. But even worse than this, I found that some cities and some buildings that we put people in are designed just like the worst zoos I could imagine. See this image on the left, bottom? This is a city. And it's not a third world country. It's not somewhere far away. It's Hong Kong. It's supposed to be a very developed and rich city. And even worse, I mean, this is already quite far what I thought was nice. But inside those buildings, people were housed like this. That's worse than the gorillas in my zoo. I mean, what to do? So me and my gorillas were very upset, you know, what to do about this. So we spent some time meditating, you know, we spent some time thinking about what to do about this. And this is I think the first lesson I want to give to you today. And my talk is about making you realize how to change the world according to how you want it to be. So the first lesson is this starts with you. It doesn't start with me, it starts with you. How? Well, I thought I want to make places for people to enjoy, to feel at home. So I thought I should study architecture. So then I went to study architecture, the most famous school in Holland, which was Delft, and I saw this building where I had to study in. I was very far away from my ideal image of a home. So, after 2 years of studying there was a small competition to design a building on campus. And I designed this little box in front together with my flatmate, Philippe. And what I wanted to say with this building is that we don't need all this kind of dead, concrete, glass, inhumane capsules. We need something that is alive. We need something that changes, that breathes, that gives back to the city. We developed this facade. Here's a nice contrast between our facade, which is alive and changing, and the old facade, which is concrete and dead. We developed this facade made out of recycled clothes that just uses a little bit of water to grow a variety of plants. You can see it here when it was just installed. This is a few months later, and a few months after that, during the fall. Actually, the prototype of this thing was developed in my student room because nobody believed us this was possible, so we had to make a mock-up. This was 10 years ago. And now you see more of this green around. So I think this is something I believed in and I did. Because I thought if I believe in a better world, I should try to make that happen. And what was very interesting, also unfortunate, perhaps, is that a few years after I built this little building, the other big building burned down. In Chinese, maybe we can call it yuanfen. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it happened. So I thought this strengthened me to believe in what I believed in. And I realized there's a second lesson. The first, do what you do. This world starts with you. Secondly, you should be honest. If you think the world should be a certain way, then you should also be that way. So do what you say, and then share what you do amongst each other. And yeah, I came to China 6 years ago, and I was in Beijing, because I thought I should go to the place where I can make the most impact. Well, Beijing is like this. I thought surely I can do something there. And like I said, I try to choose the life I believe in. So I came to Beijing and I saw all the cars and I saw the pollution. So I chose to bike. So I bike. And this is a library in Ningbo. Actually, it's the second oldest private library in the world. It's called Tianyige. And I find this library very interesting. I went there, had no books. There's only trees and some little houses. And I found that the library over there was meant to recreate the environment which is good for study. An environment that is natural, in which we can relax, we can focus, we can study, we can talk with each other. We can be away from the busy, chaotic world around us. I thought it was a great idea. And I learned also that in traditional China, this is a painting from the Song Dynasty, people and buildings were a part of nature. And to study was to be in nature. I thought, that's not bad. But, where I lived looked like this. Not really the ideal environment I had imagined. But no problem, I thought, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to make a little place for myself to study and to read and so forth. So I made this, which you call like an urban oasis. Actually, you can see the roofs of the buildings behind are all the roofs I just showed. So I made a little oasis, a little natural world. There's some water, some trees, a waterfall. Buddha has some birds. I need the cage, otherwise they fly away. I'm sorry. The turtles should be there also. Yeah, turtles. They're free and about. This is the view. And, it's still a problem, because where I worked and where I went to go to China was not quite like that either. I had made my own little oasis, but when I went to Tsinghua, which is supposed to be the best university in China, I find this. This is the main building that faces you. It's like Delft, a horrible, big kind of concrete, didn't feel good for me. And inside those buildings, it looked like this. It's different than what I thought. It's different than talking together. It's different than collaborative working. It's different than feeling like a home with a big family. It's one teacher talking to a lot of students. And where I came to study and where I'm working now, it looked like this. Actually, it vaguely reminded me of something I saw before in movies, in the James Bond movies, a Russian prison. Actually, it's not so far off from the truth, because it was inspired by Russian ideology about buildings, making everything very standardized, very simple, very bare. But in my mind, that was not very good for a learning environment, because this is how I learned that people learn. I learned that people and kids like to learn together. They're naughty, they like to explore. Remember Jazzy? Looking everywhere, she wasn't allowed to look. That's how she learned. And people work the same way. So, again, there was a competition for a small project in the architecture school where I was working. They made a competition for all the professors that were part of the architecture school. They could renovate one part of the building. That's a very small project. But I thought maybe interesting to do something. So I was given kind of this fifth floor idea. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get rid of all the classrooms. I'm going to make it open. And I'm going to put something in the middle that can function like a home base. Something that you can climb on, you can go underneath, you can sit together, you can talk together. And then all around is a series of flexible environments that people can reserve one by one. They can connect together, they can open up, and you can have it as one kind of home base. So we kind of went, and we won. I won this competition, crazily. They actually allowed me to build this. So I'd like to show you how this changed the school from the inside. It first was like this. Then we opened it up completely, get everything out. It's actually a very nice space. And then we put in this object in the center that you can inhabit, that you can sit on. Even the workers used it during their working time to kind of have a rest. So I thought this was a kind of different way of looking at education. Looking at education as a way that you can explore yourself, that you can define who you want to talk to, when you want to talk to them. So there was this box in the middle. And that box allowed for a very diverse usage of the space around it. Because you can move walls so that you can have a small lecture. Or you can put tables together to work with your group mates. And you don't have to have the teacher there all the time to control you, because you can just, configure it how you want. This is some images that I couldn't take photos of yet, because it's almost done. I think if you go next week, the furniture will be there. We even utilized every space that you would not normally think of. We kind of added this floor up to the stairs so you can sit when you have to make a phone call or so. So we tried to be flexible in terms of use of space and very smart about the environment. You could take chairs from the wall to make a small lecture space. If you don't need them, you put them back. And in the end, I think this comes to be lesson 3. Small changes can balance the big problems we have around us today. If you can make an effort to make something change in a small way, this will balance out the big thing in the end. If I was inspired by this little girl to do something, and I do something that inspires someone else, if we all work like that, we can really make a big change. So I'd like to sum up this idea. I think, and I believe, and I have experienced, that a better world starts with you. It doesn't start with raising awareness. It doesn't start with inspiring others. It starts with you. Secondly, you have to be honest with yourself about the things you do. The things you do, is that really what you believe in? Or is that only what you demand from others to do? So therefore, do what you say and share what you do. Thirdly, if we want to go towards this future habitat, then we have to realize that these small changes can have a big effect. And this is something I learned from working with these amazing creatures. This is Jazzy on the left, with her own child now, Tayari. She was born 4 years ago. Gorillas are a bit faster than me, I'm still here. And what these creatures learned me, what these gorillas taught me, is first of all, be respectful. Be respectful for the world that we inhabit. And be respectful of the others around you. Gorillas are amazing creatures. They're not aggressive. They eat plants. They're vegetarians. They might look very big and impressive, but they're actually very kind animals. And what I learned most from them is that they don't do things for their own ego and for their own benefit. Their leader, Bongo, is chosen to be the leader by the women in the group, not because he's big, or because he's handsome, or because he's strong, but because he is able to convince the other gorillas that his decisions are good for the whole group. So I think if we can take a little bit of that to make sure that what we do is not only to satisfy our egos, but is for the cause of the group of people around us and for the world at large, we surely can make a better world. Thank you very much.